Oh, hi. What, my neck hurts. Oh, hi, and welcome to SABnessful, where I give my opinions that no one really cares about, but I'll give anyways. I slipped my neck wrong and it hurts. Today, I'll be going over the cast of Traitors UK Celebrities. And this will just be a nice, simple ranking video. I'm just gonna go in the order they were eliminated, going over the cast and the episodes and my overall opinions of the season, which, spoiler alert, isn't very high. We got a whole whopping 19 UK celebrities that I barely knew. I think I knew like 3, but we'll get into all that, don't you worry. But before we do anything else, make sure to press that subscribe button to help my channel grow. And you could also leave a like and hit the bell notification and leave a comment, all those things that help for engagement, because I really use it. This could be nice, it could be a full-time job, but you know what, it's not up to you. You can really know what you want. Enough said, let's get into Traitors UK Celebrities. Spoilers abound. Is it Traitors UK Celebrities or Traitors Celebrities UK or just Celebrity Traitors? I don't know. Either way, spoilers abound. But first, of course, we must go over my tiers and how I go about my rankings. When it comes to liking contestants, there's 2 categories. 1, were they entertaining, and 2, were they good at the game. If they were super entertaining and were also super good at the game, also super good at the game, then they're gonna go into the top tier. If they were really bad at the game but were entertaining, or really good at the game but not entertaining, they're gonna kind of go in the middle. And if they were both not entertaining and not good at the game, they're gonna go more towards the bottom. That said, I do put more stock in contestants that are good at the game because I wanna see good game players, and that's what's entertaining to me. But with my tiers, typically I have 6. The top category is the love tier. Absolutely love them. They're entertaining, they're really good at the game. I wanna see them again. They were great tier. They were really good at the game. They were kind of entertaining. I really liked watching them. They were good. They were good at the game, but not entertaining, or they were very entertaining, but very bad at the game. That's kind of where they hit. They were okay. They gave me not a lot to work with, but you know, they weren't bad per se, but they weren't great or good, so they go in the okay tier. Disliked, I didn't like them.
They were really bad. They were not entertaining whatsoever. I wish they were on the screen.
And they were there too. Or for the contestants that were barely on the screen, we didn't get to know them a lot because they're eliminated early, and that's where I put them because I don't think it's fair to put them anywhere else because we just barely saw them. But like I said, I'm gonna go in the order that they were eliminated, and the first person is none other than Paloma, and she's gonna go in the okay tier. We didn't get a lot from Paloma. She was eliminated by episode 2, which I have to say, it was very clear that with the first couple episodes, they were trying to keep all the contestants as long as possible. We usually get a murder in the first episode. It wasn't until episode 2 that we finally got a murder. And I was like, okay, they're clearly trying to drag it out because of these celebrities and trying to keep them as long as possible, which I understand. You want to show these celebrities for as long as possible, but I, as a viewer of these type of shows, I don't appreciate it. I want to see people gone every episode, and we'll get into it, but some episodes didn't even end on a banishment. Hated that. I do think the reason why they've had a murder in plain sight for the first murder was so they could again keep the celebrities as long as possible. I don't hate it though. It kind of shakes it up because Traitors might be expecting to do murder in plain sight later on in the season, but they kind of switch it up on them. I kind of appreciate that. And of course, Paloma was the victim of the murder in plain sight. We didn't get to see a lot of her gameplay. We don't know how well she would have been at the game. I mean, she kind of threw some suspicions out there. I don't think she really suspected any of the traitors, but it was also like no murder had happened, so it's kind of hard to suspect anybody. But what we did get from her, she seemed like she would have been an entertaining character, but I don't want to rank people based off of what they could have been. I have to rank them based off of what they did give. So that's why I put her in okay. I don't think she was good or great because we barely saw her, but she was on enough that I don't think I could put her in they were there too. Honestly, I don't think I'm putting anybody in they were there because they all lasted for so long, which is nice. It's nice that we don't have contestants that were that under edited. Oh, and with Paloma, her being murdered by Alan was brutal. It was clear from the episodes that they were close together. So her being murdered by him is just, mwah. I love the brutality of that. I get why at first the fans were like, well, no, it couldn't be Alan. But then after some time, they should have thought it really should be Alan. Because if you're a fan of the show, like I am, you will see that whenever they do the murder in plain sight, almost every time the traitor that is doing it murders somebody they're close with because it's just too risky to do something strange and weird with someone you're not close with. So they almost always murder someone they're close with. So it actually makes a lot of sense why Alan would murder Paloma. But they also should have suspected, which is wild they didn't, is when Jonathan went into the library and asked everybody to leave to go outside. That should have been so suspicious to them after they found out a murder was in plain sight, especially because some of them did watch the show, so they know that oftentimes the traitors have to find something in a room to then do the murder. Why no one picked up on that is wild to me, but that's all I have for Paloma. Moving on to Niko. He goes in the, you know what, I'm gonna put him in okay tier. I didn't really find him that engaging or entertaining. I appreciate his strategy of admitting that, yeah, I'm just a YouTuber, I'm not of the celebrity caliber, and kind of using that to have people underestimate him. It didn't work well for him, and he was probably banished because no one really knew him. I know he's like a prankster YouTuber, and I always I don't like those type of channels. I know that his a bit more sophisticated. It isn't about him going and like bullying people in public. I don't really know anybody's videos, nor do I care. But because of that, I kind of had this like, oh, you're a prankster guy, I don't like you, which is honestly unfair. You know, he didn't really give us a lot. He lasted long enough to not go into They Were There tier. I think he was fine. I don't blame the faithfuls for banishing him because it is so hard to nail share that first round. I have something wrong. I need to go to my notes real quick. I have so many notes. Oh, okay. I messed up my order down here. No. There we go. Oh, and Niko was banished in episode 3, which we almost always get a banishment in episode 2, so I was kind of irked by that. And we ended episode 2 without a banishment. I hated that. I hate never end an episode without a banishment unless it's episode 1 because we're still getting the cast, that's fine. But after episode 1, every episode should end in a banishment. I hate when they do this. Again, it was clear they were trying to drag out as long as it could to keep all of the celebrities as long as they could. He did that. Just get rid of them. Please, just get rid of them. Next is Tom. I think Tom is going to go in the... I'll put him in good for now. Tom is one of the 3 celebrities from this cast that I actually knew. And by knew, I had heard of him before. And actually, I'm pretty sure I had seen Alan before on like social media in that one meme where he's like looking at the moon and he goes, oh, and he runs. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. But I digress. With Tom, I knew he's an Olympic diver. I believe he won gold. That's pretty much all I knew about him. But I was like, okay, I recognize that face. He was clearly a critical thinker and he was clearly playing hard and trying to deduce the traitors. Based off of what we saw on the show, he didn't really peg any of them, and he was pretty wrong. He went after, oh no, he didn't. I don't think he did vote for Kate in the first management. I know he was looking at Kate, which was wrong. And going off of that, I do think it was a mistake for the traitors to murder him. He does give like traitor hunter vibe, but he was looking in the wrong direction and people were trying to suspect him. So honestly, it would have been smart of the traitors to keep around a bit more. At the very least, keep him at least one more round longer so that he can go after Kate. Kate gets banished, a faithful gone, and then he can murder Tom because he wasn't looking in their direction. But I understand why you would want to murder him early in case he was looking at your direction because he could get a lot of people to vote with him. He wasn't the most entertaining contestant, nor was he that great of a good player, but he didn't really stay around long enough to where he could have been a good traitor hunter. But I think he deserves good. I think he was a bit more critical thinking than a lot of these faithfuls. Next is Tameka, and she's gonna go in the okay tier. I feel like I'm gonna be putting a lot of these people in the okay tier. Tameka, oh, Tameka. She kind of got herself banished. It is almost never, ever a good look when you accuse the person being a traitor who is accusing you. It's very deflective, it never ends well. It's very clear that's what you're doing. I hate the defense of, well, they're coming after me and I'm a faithful, so that means they must be a traitor. They don't know you're a faithful and people are going to suspect you. You need to be, if you play this game and you're a faithful, and even if you are a traitor, you need to be okay with the fact that people are going to suspect you. That is the game. People who aren't traitors don't know who is a traitor. And this whole defense of, well, I'm faithful and they're correcting me, that's suspicious, is so stupid. And I'm glad she kind of got punished for that. And just going after Mark because he was going after you, it's just never a good look. I don't think she defended herself well. I don't think Mark really had much to go off of by suspecting her. Again, it's early in the game, so it's hard to know that on a traitor, even though they had a lot of evidence based off the first murder, but whatever. And I guess she was kind of entertaining. I did find her enjoying to watch. I think she would have been a good character. She stuck around more, but I don't think she was really good at the game. I think for now, I'll put her at the top of okay, but I don't think I could put her past okay. Let me look at my notes. Oh, Tameka going out with 4 votes out of 16 is crazy. 4 votes sent this woman home out of 16. That is 25% of the votes. I would be so pissed if I went home with 4 votes. And we will see this a lot. These plurality votes where people get banished without a majority of the votes, and that's wild. And I do think part of that is because these celebrities didn't want to be part of sheep or herd mentality. And I get that, but also because you are having your votes go all over the place, you're getting people like Tameka and other people who are faithfuls banished for no reason because the votes were too spread out. At a certain point, you do need to get the troops together and just make sure you have the numbers to vote someone out. I kind of feel bad for her that she got voted out with 4 votes. That would drive me insane. Next is Ruth, and Ruth is the celebrity I knew most from this cast. I instantly recognized her from Midnight Club and The Fall of the House of Usher. I was very surprised to see her on and was very happy to see her. I was like, oh my god, I know her. I like her work. I like the show she's, well, I didn't like The Fall of the House of Usher, but I did like Midnight Club, which is an unpopular opinion. I digress. It was cool to see it because I actually recognized her. And I actually really did like her, and I'm gonna put it in they were great tier. She pegged Jonathan, but for the wrong reasons. She pegged him because of this car alliance thing with Niko, which I thought was so stupid. So I actually went back to rewatch that scene, And Jonathan did say the word alliance, so she wasn't wrong with that. But he said, if you form an alliance before, ... I think he said something like, before the game starts, you might be fine. And then Ruth and Niko were talking about, well, they didn't know anybody, so they'd be in trouble. He then says, well, you got 2 older allies. So yes, he said the word alliance, but he never said, we are an alliance. But it was pretty clear he was trying to help them out because they both said that they thought they could be targeted because they don't know anybody. He was clearly trying to help them out. So I thought it was so silly that she clung on to that. I also think it's silly to be like, well, we had this alliance, but then we never saw throughout the whole couple episodes them talking about this alliance. And maybe they did and they just didn't show us. It seemed like they just didn't talk about it after the car, so why is it important? And this alliance is pointless if Niko is in fact a traitor. Like, you should go after him, wouldn't you? I don't think Ruth was the type of contestant to do the traitor angel strategy, so I think it's bizarre that she would go after Jonathan for that reason, because Jonathan, if he was people could generally I thought he was a traitor, and yeah, we had this alliance, but he's a traitor, he has to go. I just thought it was so silly. That said, she was right. Jonathan was a traitor, and she was pretty much the only person at that point who was targeting him, which is crazy because there was plenty of evidence to get him banished. So even though she was right about Jonathan, she had poor reasoning, but she was right. I also did find her very entertaining. I thought she had amazing quotes. I thought she brought a lot to the cast. She brought like a good chaotic energy, which I appreciated. And her getting murdered should have led to people suspecting Jonathan. Now, I get why people didn't. We have seen this before in other shows where someone's going after a person and then they are murdered and that person is framed. We have seen this before, and I appreciate the faithfuls seeing that is what it is. But when that does happen, the feud between those contestants, usually when it is a frame, is usually fairly small. But this feud was so big. It was so clear that Ruth was after Jonathan. It was at the banishment. She was going after hard. Everybody saw it. So why would the traitors murder someone when it is an obvious frame? I don't think they would have done that. I think they just got in their own heads like, well, they're trying to frame somebody. Yes, that's happened before, but this case is so obvious that they wouldn't do it, which means Jonathan is in fact a traitor. And there was other stuff too, like again, him asking people to leave a room. And there were other stuff that should have led to him being a traitor, but that's not what happened. And it was a risky gambit that shouldn't have paid off, but it did for whatever reason. Next is Clare, and she was banished. I will also put her in they were great tier. First off, her blowing the first challenge was crazy. That was really funny of her. Like, her pulling the thing when they only get one chance was hilarious. And I'm kind of glad it didn't come to bite her because it was a clear mistake. Whether she was a traitor or not, no one would do that willingly trying to sabotage. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm glad that didn't come to bite her. But she ended up getting banished, I think the 3rd banishment. And she had some pretty good reasoning. She did suspect Jonathan. She was suspecting Alan. I like that she was the only one who was like, well, who would be the least likely person to murder Paloma? Alan, so maybe it's him. I like that she had that rationale, and I wish she went with it more. I wish people would listen to her. It was random that her last vote before she got banished was for Charlotte. That was kind of left field. Not good, but she was after Jonathan and Alan, and I wish she stuck around longer because I think she could have been the traitor hunter this season had she stayed longer. I did like her confessionals. I thought I liked her energy. I found it entertaining. So she goes in the great tier because of that. And going off the traitor hunter thing, again, I don't think any of these faithfuls were good traitor hunters, but I do think they were smart. Like, they had a lot of them were picking up on things, especially at this point. They were starting to pick up on things. It seemed like they were going in the right direction. Their rationale was smart. They had good reasoning for their thinking. It was just always wrong. Anyways, moving on, next is Charlotte, and she goes in the okay tier. She didn't really give me a lot in terms of entertainment value, and she was fine. I think she was kind of like Tom, where she had more critical thinking, but I don't think she was as critical as Tom was, nor was she as correct in her reads. She honestly was kind of forgettable, I'm not gonna lie. She was just kind of there. Oh, and the episode she gets murdered, the episode ends without a banishment. Hate! Don't do this ever. I will say, I get why they did it because it ended in a tie, which was very exciting to see how a tie works out. And, you know, it's a game of chance, which I kind of suspected, but it was cool to finally see it play out. But yeah, with Charlotte, kind of forgettable. She goes in the okay tier. Next is Mark, and Mark, I found him more entertaining than I respected his gameplay. I think I'll put him in top of okay. I think he kept looking in the wrong directions. He went after Tameka hard, was wrong. I think he only went after David because he knew it was between him and David's like, I just want to survive at this point, which respect that. Maybe I'll put him in good. Oh, yeah, I'll put him in good. A reason for why Mark was banished was because at the funeral, Paloma's funeral, he had looked back to watch people's reaction when Clare revealed who the murdered person was. And I thought that was so smart of Mark to do that. Like, that was very strategic. Like, I want to look at these people and who is not surprised. Okay, it's Alec. I was not surprised. People were suspicious of that. And I thought that was so stupid. Like, no, that's so smart of him. Why would a traitor look back to watch people? That doesn't make any sense. And it was just stupid reason to be like, you were watching us. That was very suspicious. Yeah, because he's trying to find a traitor. That should have absolved him of being a traitor. That should have been such a clear sign that he's a faithful. But for whatever reason, people went after him. And the person who went after him most was Joe M. And I got really frustrated as he got banished. We didn't hear from Joe M about him basically messing up. Like, we saw him react to be like, ooh, my bad. But we never heard from him, which I wanted to. I always, when there is such a clear person who goes after somebody at the banishment and that person gets banished and they're faithful, I want a confessional from them every time. I want to hear them say, oops, got that wrong. I want to hear how they react to it. So they'd be like, oh, I was wrong, I'm going to step back. Or, well, it's his fault, blah, 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 blah. Like, I just want to see their reaction. And I'm sad we didn't get that from Joe. Joe M knew Jonathan was a traitor. He knew he was the first short traitor, but he decided to go after Mark first because he wanted to keep the no traitor a little bit more. In a vacuum, I don't think this is a bad strategy. I do think it is smart to keep a traitor you know as long as you can, because then you can use them to find out who the other traitors are. You can use the traitor angel strategy, but we got to a point in the game to where you can't do that. We already started with only 19 people, with there's usually like 22, 23. And now we're getting down to where you don't have time to do that. It's that point that you need to banish a traitor or else you're not going to have the numbers. You're not going to have time to banish anymore. So I thought at this point, I don't care if you suspect Mark, you know Jonathan is a traitor, banish him. Then you can use that for sure information to find the traitors. So I thought that was silly. I thought that was a mistake of Joe M to banish Mark when he knew Jonathan was a traitor. You should just banish Jonathan. I digress. Mark, I don't think he was great at the game. He played it as hard as he could. Oh, another thing that why people respected him, because he did like he smacked the table after Clare got banished. If I'm playing this game and we get a bunch of faithfuls out in a row through banishments and people aren't listening and the reasoning for banishing people are so stupid, I would get angry. I would smack the table. I would swear. I would slam my chair. Like, I would do so much. And so I related to Mark because of that, because yeah, it is frustrating because people aren't listening. But I get that it looked over the top because no one else would do that, because these people were very posh when it came to their reactions after seeing people who were banished and were faithful. So I can see how that was a bit over the top, when in most seasons, him smacking the table is not a big reaction at all because people do a lot worse. Basically, the reason for why Mark was banished was stupid and I felt bad for him, but he wasn't a great game player either, but he was entertaining enough to go in the good tier. Next is Joe W. He also goes in the okay tier. I did find his dry humor entertaining. He was going after the wrong people. He was going after David hard and he was very wrong. Oh, he's going after David because David had like decided to start playing the game, and I can understand how that's a bit suspicious, but also the reason David was clear is like, hey, it's clear that I ain't stepping up, so I need to step up, which is why people were suspicious of him. They were suspicious of him because he wasn't saying much, so he's like, okay, I'll start saying much, and then Joe's like, that's suspicious, that's strange, that was silly. He was working with the other Joe hard, and I think he was suspecting one of the traitors. I think it was like Kat or Ali started to suspect, but he never followed it. It was more Joe M that was leading that, while Joe W kind of wasn't. So I don't think he was that good at the game. I did find some of his dry humor entertaining, but for the most part, he was also kind of forgettable, to be quite frank. I'm just looking at my notes, and one of my notes is, I'm not enjoying this season. Yeah, I wasn't. I don't find it entertaining when episode after episode after episode a traitor isn't banished, especially when the traitors I don't even think were that good. I think it was just the faithfuls being wrong rather than traitors being good at the game. And it was just so frustrating to watch. And next is Stephen Fry. And Stephen Fry is the last of the 3 celebrities that I actually knew. I recognized him from Quite Interesting, which I love that show. I'm going to put him in the good tier. He never, I don't think ever suspected a traitor. He was all over the place. I did find him entertaining. I liked his logic, and I liked how he conducted himself at the round tables. He was very, like, he would usually start it and he would give very sound advice. Like, I clicked the camera. I think he quoted Sherlock at one point, and it was a pretty good quote to start the round table on. I'm pretty sure that was the first round table. So I liked how he conducted himself. Again, these faithfuls, they had sound reasoning. They were looking all over the place. They weren't afraid to look at their closest allies, but they never really followed through in any of that, and they were just always looking in the wrong place. And Stephen Fry, I wish he got a traitor banished, but he never did. I would have thought he would have been a good traitor hunter, but unfortunately he wasn't. I'll put in the good tier because I did enjoy watching him. I did appreciate some of his logic, but he was just, oh my God, he was never right, and that was so frustrating. He was banished because there was this like big dog theory where like, well, it's probably either Steven or Jonathan because Claudia probably had this like 2 big dogs on either side, which I really liked that theory. I really liked it. I believe that was by the Joes. The Joes really put that theory out there. But then they took way too long to finally banish someone with that theory, and they went with the wrong person. They went with Steven first instead of Jonathan. And yes, Jonathan's banished right after this, but wow, did it take too long. Like that theory was in the circuit for a few episodes where they finally decided to utilize that. I am surprised though he got as far as he did. I would have thought he would have gotten murdered a lot sooner, but he also was never looking in the right direction, so that's probably why they kept her around for so long. Next is Lucy. Lucy goes in the okay tier. She never really had any good logic, like ever. She was never looking in the right direction. She always just looks like, even in this picture, she looks so confused. Like she always just looked confused. I do like the murder face to face. Always loved this. And I enjoyed watching her reaction. She actually gave a good reaction, unlike Trishelle from the US seasons when they did this, so I'm glad that we got that. I liked her confession of being like, wow, I was emotional and I was just looking in the wrong place. You know, up to that, good for you. I will say with Lucy's murder, we didn't get to see the Traitors turret of them discussing who to murder between Kate, Nick, and Lucy, and I wish we did, because I wanted to know why they murdered Lucy, because I think they should have murdered Nick. It was funny, the breakfast after Lucy was murdered, Kate came in last, I think for a second time at this point, and people were just not excited to see her. Like usually when the last person comes in, they're like, oh my God, it's you. And then they go and she's like, whoa, it was this person murdered. But with Kate, it was just right off the bat, like, whoa, wow, she's still here? That was so funny. I like how she owned it. She's like, well, no one's happy to see me. She kind of owned it and played with that, so I thought that was funny. Now next is finally our first traitor banish. I'll put him in the good tier. I did find Jonathan very entertaining. I'll put him a good, actually top of good tier. But why he's not going to great is because he was very messy. The whole like traitor's bluff of murdering Ruth should have gotten him banished a lot sooner. Especially since the person banished right after Ruth was murdered was Clare, who was also going after Jonathan Hart. Like the 2 people going after Jonathan the Hart were killed back to back. Ruth was going after Jonathan Hart, murdered, and he then led the charge to get Clare banished. Why did no one pick up on that? So frustrating. He should have been banished a long time ago. He got way too far. You do have to give some credit to Jonathan. Clearly he was doing a lot, and you saw him doing a lot to try to get people to not suspect him, and I do appreciate how he conducted himself, but with his actions, how he voted, the people murdered, it should have been clear he was a traitor, and for whatever reason, the faithfuls did not pick up on that. But I did appreciate him. I enjoyed watching him. He was great to have in the tower because Alan and Kat weren't very active in terms of gameplay outside the turret, so I was glad to see that he was, but got way too far. I should not have gone as far as he did. Next is to Celia, and I'm gonna put her up top of okay. I want to put her in good. And why I want to put her in good, because I did find her entertaining at first because she was just suspecting everybody. And I like that she was like, I'm going to snoop, and she would tell people snooping, which is like, why would you tell people you're snooping? Defeats the purpose. And I appreciate that she would look at everybody and she suspected everybody, and she was always clear, even from the get-go, of like, well, you have to suspect everybody. But then she did that every episode and just got tiring at a certain point because she was suspecting everybody and she was always wrong. Yeah, she helped banish Jonathan, but wow, did it take her too long to get to that point. And yes, she had said that she had suspected him for a long time, and she owned the fact that she didn't go with her gut, and she's like, I should have. So I appreciate that. She would just suspect everybody and just throw out these theories and be like, oh, this person could be suspicious, blah, 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 blah. But never have any like evidence back her up. It was just causing more confusion because she was just suspecting everybody, and also no one could really trust what she said because she suspected everybody. If everybody's a traitor to you, then how do we know that this person saying a traitor is a traitor, you know? And also, I believe it was during Jonathan's banishment, or before Jonathan's banishment, she was going around and being like, telling people, oh, I think it's Jonathan, but don't tell anybody else because I don't want the traitors to find out. Girl, at this point, there are 8 people. They're going to find out. And so that was silly that she kept saying that. I wish that Celia was a lot better. I wish she had pegged a lot of the traitors down, but she didn't, which was so frustrating because she seemed like she'd be good. Like she seemed like she had good reasoning, but then it was never looking in the right direction, which was frustrating. I digress. I'm moving on. The next person banished is Kate. Kate also goes in the okay tier. Kate, wow, was she just piggybacking on everybody. She never had any theories. Like, she never said a name. That is, like, I can't even blame the faithfuls for suspecting her, because it is so suspicious if you don't throw out a name. And you don't have to throw out a name, but if people ask you who you're suspicious of, you should have one. Like, I'm suspicious of this person, this person, this person. You should always have suspicion of somebody, because that's the game. And you not is suspicious. I do give her credit in owning it. Like, at the chessboard challenge, when she was called the weakest faithful, she was like, yeah, I am. She owned it. She recognized she wasn't good, and she wasn't being very productive with the group. And I appreciate that. I do. But then I'll get annoyed because she recognized she wasn't doing a lot. She recognized she wasn't being helpful and would do nothing with that. What also frustrated me about Kate was towards the last few episodes before she was banished, she would come into the breakfast and be like,
I know people are saying my name. I know they are.
Meanwhile, during the whole episode, we would see no one else throwing her name out there except for Kate. Like, Kate was the only person saying her name was being said. And then she would start the banishments being like,
I know my name is out there. Why? Let me know why.
I appreciated that she wanted to hash it out and try to defend herself, but like, she would start the banishment every time saying that, and every time a faithful would give her the same reasoning. She wasn't putting out any theories out there. She wasn't saying any names. She'd be like,
oh, okay.
And never do anything with that information. Like, you know why you're being suspected, but you're doing nothing. At her final round table, I did like how she conducted herself. She finally gave the answer of, well, I'm a journalist. I've been trained to not have an opinion. And I appreciate that. That made a lot of sense. But you should have said that a lot sooner. If you had said that ages ago, you might not have been suspected. You might not have been banished. But you didn't. You said it way too late. Doesn't matter if that's your reasoning. Doesn't matter if you've been trained not to have an opinion. In this game, you need an opinion. And you knew that, and you never did. And so I can't even blame the faithfuls for banishing her. Now we get into the finale. And next is Kat. And I'm going to put Kat, and they were good tier, top of good tier. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Okay, I did like Kat. I was rooting for her. I did want her to win, but she made a lot of mistakes. She wasn't really active outside the turret, and people caught on to that. Some did, but they never went with it for whatever reason. I think her biggest mistake was letting herself be the last woman standing when all the other women were banished and murdered and cleared faithfuls. Claudia would never have an all-male turret. And even though we never saw any of the contestants talk about that, I'm sure they thought about it. And yes, during the last UK season, Claudia chose an all-female turret, but that was a reaction to a lot of the male traitors in season 2. And even though the previous season had an all-female turret, I just never would see Claudia choosing an all-male turret. It was really bad for her to be the last woman standing, because had Kate been in the finale, or had a Lucy at the point where they weren't going to reveal any of the roles of those banished, she might have squeaked by. She was also the last young person for a very long time. There were only like really 4 young people. It was Ruth, Niko, Kat, and Tom were seen as the 4 young people, and the other 3 were killed off very quickly, and she was the last young person, and I'm surprised the faithfuls didn't really catch up on it. It is not a bad theory to theorize that Claudia probably chose people at different ages, probably someone older, probably someone in the middle, and probably someone younger, and Kat was the last person of the young people. And that didn't come to bite her, but I do think her being last woman did come to bite her, even though we didn't see it. I also got frustrated with Kat because she kept saying, well, we need to give the faithfuls a traitor. They need a traitor. No, they don't. I see this all the time in other seasons. The faithfuls don't need a traitor. They don't. Keep the traitors as long as you can, especially in this season where they're not even keeping the money, so it doesn't really matter about splitting it. And also, Jonathan wasn't hurting your game. For the most part, Jonathan was team traitors and was allied with them and not throwing the names out there. So because Jonathan is a good ally, keep him more. You are literally 1 round. It was the final 8. 1 more faithful banished, another murder. You have the numbers. It's 3-3. You have the numbers. The traitors win. You need to keep him 1 more round. And we just never saw Kat and Alan trying to save Jonathan. And yeah, the votes were there to banish Jonathan that round. They need to hop on that. But I think they could have saved him. They had 3 out of 8 votes. They just needed 2 more or just 1 more and the other 4 not go on Jonathan, and you saved him. I was so frustrated by Kat because I think if she had kept Jonathan in, they had the numbers, they win. Like, there's nothing people can do at that point. Kat was also very quiet, and people would ask her, like, Kat, we need an opinion from you, or Kat, you need to step up more. You have so many opportunities to have your opinion be heard, and you're actually choosing not to. That is suspicious. She kind of got really lucky and got away with it for way too long with that. I do think of the 3 traitors, she was the best traitor. And I think she did the best of avoiding suspicion. While Jonathan was very active and Kat wasn't, he was a lot messier, or Kat was more polished. I do think she could be more active. And I do think what really got her was, again, the women thing towards the end and trusting Joe too much. I do think at the final 5, her and Alan should have locked in David. Nick and Joe M were clearly working together, and Dave was in the middle. They need to grab him. I do understand why she decided to to work with Joanne because Joanne did vote for David multiple rounds and was suspicious of him, and her and Joanne were close. So I don't blame her for not trying to pull in David. But I believe it was also her that said it doesn't matter what Nick does, as long as they have Joe, it doesn't matter what he does.
Yes, it does.
Is the final 5. And when one rogue vote, like say Joe M switching sides, can send you home, you need to lock in as many votes as you can. And again, I think that is her detriment to where her and Alan needed to rally the troops. They need to get votes on their side. They just kind of let the faithful do whatever they want. And I think that came back to really bite Kat. They need to be more active in getting the faithfuls to vote how they wanted. That could have saved her. So even though I do think she was the best with 3 traitors, because of her very passive gameplay, I can't put her past good. As she had been more active, she would be great and she probably would have won. Next is Joe M, and my God. I'll put him in great because even though there are times I was frustrated with him, like him going after Mark and like being like really cocky, is either at the banishment during Mark's round table when he got banished, or the banishment after that, he was very cocky at the round table and people picked up on that. I think that was very bad social gameplay, but he did figure out it's Alan and Kat. We need to get them both. And I respect that a lot. And him getting banished at the final 4 was heartbreaking and so frustrating. Like, Nick, I'll get to him. Wow, did you up? That was really bad. And his face of being like how devastated he was to see Nick write his name down was such good TV. But it was also very sad. I do think the most satisfying ending out of that final 5 would have been him and Nick winning because they had really good gameplay together and they were working great together. They had great logic together, and it was just so frustrating for him to go out like that. Like, whoa, why? I really wish he won. I really do. That would have been the most satisfying ending for me. And I think it would have been very deserved. I'm checking my notes if I have anything more on Joe M. Oh, okay. I think it was at like the final 5 where I think he initially wanted to go after Alan, but then he said something like, I'm too afraid we don't have the votes to go after Alan. It's the final 5! You don't have the votes to go after him at the final 4, as we saw. Like, I seen this before in other seasons and a little bit more in this season too. It's like, we don't have the votes. Like, you're not gonna have the votes tomorrow. Every day that passes by, you have less and less votes. Like, just go for it. And I get that sometimes some people might get murder or banished who would not have gone with Alan. So you need to get that to the point to where they will. But bro, it is the final 5. We don't have the votes. You won't have the votes at final 4. Joe frustrated me a bit, but at the end of the day, he was probably the smartest of all the faithful. So actually, I put him atop of great because he did peg down all traitors, the only person to do it. Next is David, and David goes in the okay tier. There are so many times in my notes where I'm like, I really like David, I'm rooting for him, and then he would choose the wrong person to go after. Like, David, I think of everybody here, had the best logic, had the best reasoning. Like, the way he defended himself at the round tables, especially when he was in that tiebreaker, the way he would defend himself was so well put, so smart. I was like, yeah, you're making so much sense. Absolutely, David. But then he would go for the wrong person. I was like, David, please wake up. Wake up. Like, you have such smart reasoning, but man, you're going the wrong direction. He was the only person not to vote for Jonathan at the round table. And then the next day he kept asking, well, who didn't vote for Jonathan? Who voted for Jonathan? Like, literally everybody besides you, David. And then he would also say like, well, I believe the traitors voted for Jonathan. Well, no shit. Everyone did except for you, and you know you're not a traitor, so obviously the other traitors voted for Jonathan. Like, he would say that it was some big revelation, like, no shit, everyone voted for him. I am kind of glad he didn't win. As much as I really liked his reasoning, he never voted for a traitor, like, ever. Did he vote for Kat? He did vote for Kat, but that was more to save himself, which I respect, I appreciate. He's like, look, it's either me or her, and I need to do this to save my game. I respect that. So he did get 1 traitor at the final 5. For me, the most satisfying ending would have been Joe M and Nick winning. But if it had been Joe, Nick, and David winning, that would have been second best ending for me personally. I think overall best ending thematically would have been the 3 faithfuls left in the final 5. Because then you can give Joe and Nick credit for correctly identifying that David is in fact a faithful. But David didn't really deserve the win at that point. Sorry, David. I liked your reasoning, but you're just off too much. Because of that, he goes in the okay tier because he was just so wrong so many times. And neck is Nick. I think I said and neck is Nick. And next is Nick, and okay, where do I even begin? Nick goes in the okay tier. First off, Nick should have been murdered, and Joe M quite frankly should have been murdered, but Joe M was saved a lot through twists. I think at one point Nick even suspected Joe, because why is Joe still here? Which, fair, Nick, why is Joe still there? He should have been murdered a long time ago. But also Nick, he literally couldn't because he had shields. Like,
Duh.
But with Nick should have been murdered a lot sooner. They took too long to murder him, and that came to bite Kat in the butt. But then he did up at the end. He had all the tools to go for Alan. There was so much evidence against Alan, especially because Alan was the only person to not vote for Kat in that final banishment besides Kat. Like, dude, that should have been a major red flag. Especially towards that final 5, it's clear they were working together. That should have been so clear to Nick, and for whatever reason, he didn't pick up on that, which was so silly. And I do understand his fear of, I don't want to be made the fool. I trust Joe. Joe is the person I trust the most, and he is just making me look like a fool and playing me. At that point then, go to final 2 with David. It felt like he felt out of the final 5, David was the most faithful. Go to final 2 with him. Don't even risk it, because you were suspecting Alan for a while, and Joe had so many good points about it. And the look of devastation on Joe's face when Nick voted for him should have been a red flag. And maybe Nick feared if he voted one more time at the final 3 that Alan and David vote for him. At that point, he doesn't win. But I think it was pretty clear, like, David and Alan would go vote for each other, and Nick would be deciding vote. And I would have been so mad if David and Nick then voted for Alan, because Joe deserved that. Like, Joe handed them the last 2 traitors on silver platter, and I would have been mad if David and Nick voted him out believing he was a traitor when he wasn't, and then voted for Alan. Now, I would have respected if Nick and they were like, hey, we both know we're faithfuls. Joe might be a faithful, but let's not risk, let's just give him both. I would appreciate that, but that's not what happened. They genuinely thought Joe was a traitor over Alan nonetheless. And when Alan finally told them and they realized that they fucked up, I was like, okay, here we go. We're gonna see Nick be so devastated once he finds out that he messed up so hard. But then we didn't get that. We got a little bit of that. We got a little bit of reaction. I think Nick was like, oh, like that was a great reaction. But then Alan started breaking down, and it just went to, instead of seeing David and Nick realize they just lost and just voted out a faithful over traitor, instead of seeing them process that, we saw them trying to comfort Alan because Alan broke down. I don't necessarily blame Alan for breaking down, because he just saw Nick and David be super excited to win with him, only to take that from him. I don't blame him for that. And I appreciate the good sportsmanship from David and Nick. But I'm a terrible person, and I want to see them be devastated. I like that. That's why the trailers are so good, because the emotions are so high, and you see the devastation of people towards, and like the best part about traitor winning for me is seeing the final faithful realize they fucked up. I love seeing that. I'm a terrible person, and I wanted to see that from David and Nick, and I was frustrated we didn't get that. And I also wanted more fireworks when Joe and Nick reunited. I wanted Joe to go into Nick hard. I respect and understand why he did it. He respects the game. But my philosophy is, when it comes to these shows, like, in the show, give us the drama. And then once it's done, you know, realize it's a game and don't hold it against them. Like, that would be me. If I was Joe and Nick came down, I would be like, don't talk to me. Like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this? And I would have been so frustrated with Nick. And then afterwards, I'd be like, it's a game. I would be mad for the rest of my life, because at the end of the day, it's a game. It's nothing personal, I understand. But yeah, with Nick, he probably would have been a great tier if he didn't fuck up at the end, but he goes down to the okay tier because of that. Let's see if I have any more. Oh, yeah. Here's another thing that frustrated me with Nick. I liked when Nick and Joe sabotaged the chess game so that Nick could lose because they were trying to catch the traitor. First off, you're wrong about which team had more traitors. And second off, I hated that Nick was like, oh, like, we should just randomize it. Like, no, they already chose the teams. The traitors already chose. They're all one-sided. Don't randomize it, no! And then he decided to randomize it. That was frustrating. But I respected that him and Joe, like, we're going to try to work together to sabotage this mission to get the traitors, even though they chose the wrong team. But then Nick admitted to that. Never admitted to that. And people suspected that. Like, if I was in the game, I'd be like, oh, I get it. He's playing a little bit more non-faithfully because he's trying to catch the traitor. I respect that. But you should never admit that. So I can't blame people for suspecting because of that. Let's see. No, Nick, don't randomize. Nick, first off, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. I also never admit that. At least he suspects Kat. I will give him credit in that he was the first person to suspect Kat when no one else was. I'll give him that. And I think he was able to get Joe on board of the Kat train.
So I'll give him that.
And finally is our winner. The last traitor standing. It's Alan. I'll put him in good between Kat and Jonathan. I think of the 3 traitors, he was the most entertaining. I really loved his quick-witted banter. He was so quick with comebacks. I love it, especially in the turret. I loved him seeing there. Very entertaining. In terms of gameplay, he had so many mistakes. So many mistakes. Let's start with Paloma. Mario Paloma. Wasn't surprised that she was murdered. No reaction from him. And he seems like an emotional player. And maybe this is a mystery on my part, but he seems like he would have bigger reaction to Paloma being murdered if he wasn't traitor. But he didn't. Also, Paloma was the closest person to him. And if you're murdering someone in plain sight, you want to murder someone close to you. And he was the least likely person to murder her. That should have been a red flag. He would smile doing the banishments. He would smile when faithfuls get banished. Now, I would probably do that too because I smile inappropriately all the time. But I would also be aware that I need to not do that. He would never do that. He would forget he had a shield. And yeah, at one point he had a good defense because I think he said something like, oh, well, Joe, you said I would sleep well tonight. I didn't understand what you were saying. Like, that's fair, but also you forgot you had a shield. That's really bad. Beginning of the finale, Claudia asked all of them to look at everybody and say you're faithful. He laughed, which honestly I probably would too, so I understand. But also, with everything else combined, that should have been enough to banish him, and yet it wasn't. And I do think Alan did a very good job of deflecting, of making people think he was just some silly guy who was there. I think he did that very well, but he also had so many mistakes that should have gotten banished that people just weren't reading. And I think what Alan benefited the most, and I could be wrong about this, I think he benefited from the fact of that people knew him. They had a pre-notion of him, is that the word? Pre-perception of, they had already previous perception of Alan, and I think because of that clouded their judgment of him, and they couldn't see anything past Alan outside the game when they needed to look at Alan in the game. If they had done that, they would have seen all the suspicious stuff going around Alan and banish him, but they didn't. For me, I think Alan won more because the other faithfuls failed to get him versus him doing the leg work to get himself there, because he also, like Kat, wasn't very active, wasn't rallying troops, wasn't rallying the numbers to make sure you had the numbers on your side and the vote was going your way. That's why Kat got banished. If they had, him and Kat could have won. But I also don't want to take away from the stuff that he did do well, because he did do a good job deflecting. And I was definitely surprised for him to win solo. Coming to this finale, I would have thought Nick and Joe were winning. And with Alan winning, I'm not sure that's very satisfying to me. The finale itself was a great episode. I was not expecting it to go the way it did. It was exciting, it was intense. I liked the finale, but the ending, again for me, Joe and Nick winning were the most satisfying because I felt it was the most earned. And though I think Alan did do good things, I think he just messed up too much for it to feel earned that he won. I think Kat and Alan winning would have felt earned. I think honestly, Kat winning solo, I felt earned because she made less mistakes. But Alan winning solo, it doesn't feel as earned to me. And maybe that's just not fair of me to say that, but that's just my opinion. But I don't think he's necessarily a bad winner. I don't think objectively, like taking it, like looking out from like a objective lens, I don't think him winning makes the season bad overall, but for me, it's not personally satisfying. But he was very entertaining, so I'll give him that. But that concludes my tier ranking. I had no one in disliked and no one in loved. I had no one at the end of the extreme, so sad I didn't like love anybody, but at least I didn't dislike anybody. But overall, this cast was meh. The season was meh. And I know some people out there were super high in the season because of celebrities. And maybe if I had known a lot more of the celebrities, I would have appreciated the season a lot more. But I didn't really know most of them. But even then, looking at it objectively, it wasn't that exciting because it took 4 hours to get a traitor banished. And the season's most exciting when it's the back and forth, or when there was someone who was really good just pegging the traitors and seeing if they'll eventually get them. And we never really saw any standout traitor hunters. We saw a couple people getting some good theories, a couple people kind of pegging some of them, but most of the time, even when they did peg a traitor, they never followed through with a vote until much later in the season, which was frustrating. And overall, these faithfuls, I don't think these are the worst bunch of faithfuls. I've seen worse. I'm thinking of Canada. I'm thinking of New Zealand. Australia. There have been worse groups of faithfuls. I do think in terms of like how these people are thinking, they were thinking smartly, they were thinking critically, but they just got it in their heads. And I think also, and they mentioned a lot in the season, they were way too nice. Way too nice. I think they were too afraid to go after people. And I think that's also why I'm not as high on this season, and this is the mid-season for me, because there's no grit. People weren't getting ugly at the round table. I don't want ugly as in mean. I want ugly as in you're fighting, you're going after people, you're laying it all out there. And though I do appreciate that even though these people weren't getting the money, they were still clearly invested in the game. They clearly wanted to be, they clearly wanted to win. If we had more grit from the cast, I would have appreciated the season overall more, but we didn't. They were too nice about it. Even Claudia was like, you guys need to stop being too nice. And I respected that. Some other opinions aside the cast. I love Claudia. I think she's a great host. I love her banter. You could tell she's having fun with this cast, and I really like seeing that. In terms of missions, I don't really care about the missions. I like the head one. I wish they did more with that. I hate the laser. Like, I get it. Like, you know, it's kind of kooky and funny to watch these celebrities try to navigate these lasers, but I wish they did more with the heads. I thought that was such a cool setting to have all these heads there and headless mannequins. Side note, they did Clare dirty with her head. I wish it was more of like a puzzle type thing. and they really like utilized this beheading and death theme that they didn't. It was just like a dumb laser thing. I did like the final mission. I thought the final mission was cool. I liked the setting. I liked it was on a moving train. I liked the outdoor compartments. I liked the escape room component. I love escape rooms. I've worked at escape rooms. I would never have thought to tear the porches because in the escape rooms I worked at, we would never. Like we always tell people, anything you need to open easily opens. You don't need to break anything. You don't need to tear anything. I would lose my mind as modern escape room if that happened. So I would personally never think to tear the portraits, but I thought it was clever. It said whip at the bottom. It had holes in it. I thought it was a clever puzzle. It makes me want to ride a steam train so much. Like the trains these days aren't what they used to be. And the more functional, the more practical, I get it. But would it be so wrong to just wish for a train to, like an Orient Express?
Stop the murder.
With that aesthetic. Yeah, that's kind of all I have. I am currently watching Traitors Canada. That's been pretty good. I'm excited to see where that goes. And I'm also excited to talk about it. I'm super excited for the next US season. And that's all I have. Thank you all for checking out my opinions. Let me know what you thought of this season. I'm very curious. And that's all I have to say. You know, I already feel like I need to end this with something witty, and I never really have anything witty. So there you go. Ta-ta.